Thank you for your patience while we brought in a few more chairs. It's nice to see so many faces here this evening. On behalf of the Baha'i Student Association of Iowa State, I'd like to thank, first of all, the other organizations on campus that joined with us to sponsor Kevin Locke's visit to campus. And the other groups include the Native American Student Association, the Student Environmental Council, the Religious Studies Department, the Ames Coalition Against Apartheid, the Anthropology Club, the American Indian Rights Organization, the Center for Indigenous Knowledge in Agricultural and Rural Development, and the Committee on Lectures. So it's nice to have such broad-based support for Kevin's visit. Joining Kevin this evening will be some members of the Terra Rouge Activity Club from the Meskwaki settlement at Tama. And I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Kevin Locke. He's a Lakota Sioux living at Mobridge, South Dakota. And I think more than any poor words that I might say, Kevin will speak for himself this evening. I would like to point out that he has received many awards for his work in preserving Lakota Sioux culture, and including a recent award from the National Endowment of Arts of a National Heritage Award. So with that, I introduce Mr. Kevin Locke.
Thank you very much. Is this all adequate here? Got some feedback there. Okay, I'd like to say good evening to everybody, and it's really a pleasure to be here. And I'd like to start by asking Mr. Adrian Pushitoniqua to render a song. This is going to be, whenever people get together, Indian people get together, especially I know through my experience, they have certain songs that are appropriate, and one of the songs that is often sung when people get together would be the like a national anthem. I don't know if you're all aware of that, but I think just about every tribe that I have come in contact with, especially in the plains and woodlands, they all have some form of national anthem. And I asked Mr. Pushitoniqua if he could render that for us. I also asked him if he could maybe mention a few words about this song, just to edify you, clarify that. And then I'll also add one thing that he I don't know if he'll mention that, but just like any kind of a national anthem, when you hear that first drum beat, by then, or even before that, when they start, you could rise at that time. But I'd like to turn the program over to Mr. Pushitoniqua. Let's have a round of encouragement for him for showing up.
Well, good evening. It's nice to be here, to be with in the presence of Kevin Locke here. I feel proud to be performing with him and assisting him tonight. As far as the song, the flag song, I've often heard, and this is the way it usually is, you usually hear from other people in the community about certain things, especially with the flag song. And one of the things I've heard about the flag song, this particular flag song we're going to sing, belonged to John Buffalo, and he was a veteran. Usually these songs are made in honor of veterans, or the veteran himself made some words to the song. Unfortunately, we don't have the words. I believe they're lost somewhere. So basically we just have the verses, the sound that we have for the song. And that's just a little history of that story behind everything. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your kind, reverent, and respectful attention. You may be seated. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nikolai. Very good. Well, we're going to have some girls show up a little bit later, I think, who will do a dance exhibition. If there's, I think there'll be room. We could probably make some room for them and have some more songs at that time, some more songs on the big drum. I'd like to share some songs with all of you at this time as well. The theme of this evening is the destiny of the American Indian, which I really don't have a clue about. I really don't have much of a clue, but all I can say is that it's very exciting. It's a very exciting period to be in. You know, the popular image of the American Indian is best. I think it's best captured by the lot of the movies in Hollywood that kind of perpetuate that image. And I hate to be, you know, this is not going to be a negative comment. I don't want anybody to take it that way. And in fact, I'll start out on a positive end. You know, I'll say that I love Dance with Wolves. I think it's just beautiful. It's really great. I think it's really wonderful. But, in fact, they just filmed it just right over the hill from where we live. It's just right over the hill. That's he's our neighbor to the south. He's the Houck Ranch. They have 2,000 buffalo. That's where they film part of it, right down there. We live in about 5 miles west of Mobridge on the west side of the Missouri River, and so anyway, when I walked out of that movie, you know, I had all these things going in my mind, but one thing that was very strong in my mind was that, gosh, we're still dinosaurs, you know. That was and we were just watching that today in the video. If you remember, old Kevin Costner, he's writing. By the way, I was down in Pierre when they were filming that. I did a little program down at the park, and some of the film crew was there. And they asked me to come over and participate in that. They said they wanted me to teach Kevin Costner how to dance. And I am so thankful that I didn't go. I'd never hear the end of it after watching him dance, you know. Every day I wake up, I said, thank God I didn't do that. Thank God I would never hear the end of it. But I think it's more like polkas with porcupines. Anyway, but like I said, I thought it was really good. You know, this powerful, strong imagery in that movie, and I'm kind of getting around. You have to excuse me. It takes me a little time to make a point here, but that's just the way I am. The thing that I wanted to mention was that watching at the end of that movie, if you notice, I don't know if you noticed it, but it's quite a dramatic effect. You see Kevin Costner and his girlfriend are going out, and you notice they're kind of going into the light, going into the light. And then, if you remember, the Indians are fading out in the dark. Watch it again; you can see that. And so this is a very stark image. I mean, it's a very impactful image, and I think it reinforces. Now, I know that it created a real positive, you know, great receptivity among people, a great interest. But it's an interest that still has people kind of held back in time. You know, I'll introduce this little topic right now in terms of my conception of the destiny of the American Indian. It's very, very powerful. It's a very beautiful destiny, and it ranks with the destinies of all the peoples here throughout this planet, and all the different peoples that have come here onto this island here, and are sharing this. When I say island, you know, this Makawita, North America, the Earth Island, that's what I'm referring to. We all have incredibly beautiful destiny. I'm sure it's very beautiful. You see, next year, 1992, it'll be for the Baha'i world, 5 million Baha'is and growing throughout the world. It'll be Holy Year. That's the 100 years since the passing of Baha'u'llah, the prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith. But here in the Western Hemisphere, there'll be lots of things. In fact, they're already starting. They're starting this month, in fact, just gearing up for incredible momentum. I don't know how much you hear about it here in Iowa, but incredible momentum building up for a commemoration of the fifth centenary, 500 years. They call it the quincentennial, the quincentenary commemoration of the landfall of Columbus. And so I think that this Dance with Wolves, it ties into that, because you see what's happened in these 500 years is that incredible, most incredible period of time, this 500 years that people have interacted for the first time. This has been like a stage here, this hemisphere, in which all these peoples from different parts of the world have interacted for the first time. This tree of humanity branched out, and then all of a sudden, these 500 years, they've been interacting. But you see, what they have been interacting over and about has not been a very healthy experience. You see, in this next year, the way I look at it and the way I'm observing it now, people are positioning themselves to try, to redeem or to vindicate their role in history. And every one of them, in order to do that, they have to cast a certain perspective on history. And in order for themselves to come out good in that perspective, somebody else has to take a negative role. Because you see what's happened, and once again, it sounds like I'm saying this in a negative way, but it's just my observation. In these past 500 years, the roles that we have been forced to play have not been really great roles. We've been putting each other into different roles of like the victims and the victimizers, the heroes and those that don't have such heroic roles, the exploiters and the exploited, the oppressed and the oppressors, all different kinds of roles. Because you see, what we've been doing is that we've been these past 500 years we've been staking out claims in all of the resources of this beautiful island, and we've been fighting over those resources. And as such, we have not been doing things that will redound to the nobility of ourselves as human beings. And so the way I look at Dancing with the Wolves is that it's probably an important thing that people have to go through, because we can't it's so hard to resolve things that have happened in history. And in Dancing with the Wolves, it's the Indians who are really have more of a human are come out as as being people who have a real depth, emotional depth, spiritual depth. And the poor, the white people come out as subhumans. And the poor Pawnees, they never get a fair shake. Those guys, they never get a fair shake. But and I think that's probably good. I think people need to go through that. They probably need to process all of this historical things. What can we do with it? How can we process it? So I think Dance with the Wolves might be useful thing. It's of course a beautiful piece of art, cinematography. It's probably something really good that people need to go through to process all of the stuff that we've gone through from our ancestral past. But my preference is to step out of that and step into some the roles, these beautiful roles that we have before us. And what I'd like to do this evening is I'd like to dedicate some songs. You see, I just kind of skimmed over a lot of ideas here. I don't know if any of you have thought of these ideas, but I just kind of skimmed over them. And what I'd like to do is to take a few minutes here and to reinforce some of those ideas. And I can't really reinforce it verbally very well, so I'd like to try and reinforce that maybe with some little bit of music. And then we're going to have some kids out here. That's the most powerful statement of the destiny of the American Indian. You don't have to say a thing, you just see it. You see the young people. And I think the best example of a beautiful destiny of the American Indian are your neighbors, the only Indian community, tribal community here in Iowa, the Red Earth people here. Very good very good showcase to contemplate the glorious destiny. We all have beautiful destiny, but this first song I'd like to share with you is going to be an eagle song. This is my favorite song, one of my favorite songs. I'd like to dedicate this eagle song to all of you here, and I'll just give you a real brief background on this eagle song, because to me this is one of the main roles we have to contemplate. You see, I'm tying it together for you. Okay, now the background I want to give on this eagle song is back in time when the world was flooded out. There was a great flood. They call it Miniwichat'e. A great flood covered the earth. All peoples have a remembrance of that. And it's a long story, but to make it short, only one survivor was a woman. She went to high ground, and she didn't have. If she was in Iowa, she didn't have to go too far. But anyway, I don't know where it was really. Exactly, I don't know where it was. But anyway, she was going up towards the highest piece of earth, and still that was being covered. And she was swept up into the torrent. And she was being pulled down, and she was strong. She could kind of get up above water, and she got a breath, and she was pulled down again. And she was going down for the last time when suddenly she felt something grab hold of her, and she felt herself being pulled out of the water. And here is a great eagle that had come down out of the heavens, and his talons had grasped her and was flying with her upward. And they went up, up, up over the clouds, and they went soaring. And then they went until they came to the great tree of life, the great tree of life. And they landed in the top, the upper branches of the great tree of life. The flood waters came up just below them. But the great tree of life, of all things connected to the earth, had its roots down, and the great flood could not uproot that tree of life. And so from this eagle and from this woman were born twins, and from those twins the whole world became filled with people again, you see. And this is kind of an interesting story. You think of it and you think, well, that's really fantastic. That's really beyond belief. But then when I re-examine that story, I think of it that it probably is not really strong enough in emphasizing the important part of that, which is that even though we're not lineally or physically descended from eagles, still we're very much, I think we're more like eagles than the eagles themselves, if we really think about it, because we have these powerful wings that we can soar higher. They're stronger than eagles' wings, you know. What I'm referring to is the two focal points, the things that distinguish human beings, you know. That one of them is our intellect, our mind. This is such a powerful wing, you know. This whole institution here is dedicated to developing and empowering that wing so it can really soar. And I know people here that in different fields of knowledge that they can do that. It's such great insight, depth of perception that they have from that developing this powerful wing. This is great. It's wonderful. But you can only soar so far on one wing, and this is what our society is. It's really crippled. Once again, it sounds kind of negative, but we are a society of broken winged birds, because we have so emphasized development of this one wing that we have often neglected the other wing, which is of course this wing, the wing of the heart. The wing of the heart. This is the wing. I really don't know if it's English. We don't use it in that way yet. But in different Indian languages, like if you speak in Lakota, Lakole ogana won kichiga lakapi kiha, chiwichoe numpa unkumpi. We use two words, quite distinctive, to designate this kind of knowledge, which is wo'osloye, and this kind of knowledge, wo'okachneche. Of the two, this one's more important, the knowledge that wells out of your heart. And this is a very powerful wing that we have to develop. And this wing is developed through the love, the connectedness, the bonds that we can show for one another. And so with these two wings as eagles, we can really soar. So I'd like to dedicate this song to all of you, because to me this is a beautiful role that we need to begin to step into, this role. Because if you contemplate the history from only this wing, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get mired down. You can get stuck in like where we have gumbo. The harder you try and get out, you never get out of that gumbo. You just dig in deeper. The only way you can understand the past, what we've been going through, is to use both these wings. This one is going to help to get us out of that gumbo right here, to understand this basic connectedness, how this tree of humanity has branched out. And now, if we can kind of lift our sights up, then we can see the connectedness of this great tree of humanity. You know, looking out here, we can see, people in this room, you can trace your ancestry back to all the roots of humanity, right in this room, right here. So here's a eagle song. In this song it says, Mie trokahe ampetu wa wakie. Anuka sanaha wambaligaleshka hea u chanke mie trokahe ampetu wa wakie. That means I am the first to fly with the dawn. Then it says the golden eagle, that's wambaligaleshka, and the Anunka san is a bald eagle, says this as they wing their way with the dawn. So I'll dedicate this to all of the eagles and eaglets here. These little eaglets are poised, you know, they're ready to go from their nest. But you know, as eagles, we're also very much like the eagles out in the world, because we have our nest so high. When these little guys leave, you know, go out into the world, unless they have both wings activated, empowered, and functioning, a lot of times they're going to go a long ways before they hit the ground, if you're understanding what I'm saying. I see a lot of that. Anyway, this is for us, this new day that we're living in. You can see all the forces at work in the world today are creating such a tumult that the only way that we can really function in this world is to be like an eagle. This is why in the Sioux tribe, among the Dakota, they're, even though there's different clans, the only animal clan that they really relate to is the eagle. They're all eagle clan in that sense. So I'll relate to everybody here as eagle clan. We're all eagle clan. So, because you see that story connects all of humanity. We're all, even though we are made up of dust, lowest thing, but yet we're connected, because remember that eagle, we're descended from the eagle. We have these powerful wings. That's a nobility. So here's an eagle song for all of you, and I'll try and sing it as well. Hey, that's for all of us eagles in here. Give yourself a big round of applause. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm really concerned about is the kind of roles that we can envision for ourselves. This is very significant as we contemplate destiny. And I hate to isolate anybody's particular destiny because we all share in this beautiful destiny. And but I would like to I'd like to play a song which has a very important role. Talking about roles. This song, because a lot of the songs that I'm playing here are unfamiliar to so many of you. So I'll play a song that'll be familiar. It's a very, very beautiful song. And I was recently watching PBS, and I noticed this program. It was Bill Moyer's Journal, and he did a special on this particular song. I won't name it. A lot of you probably saw that program, but if I play it, you'll recognize it. But I'll give you the background. It's kind of interesting. I didn't know this. This song was composed by John Newton in I think it was 1779. And John Newton was from England. And of course, at that time, they were getting into full gear, high gear on this. How are they going to best appropriate? I'll use that word. Appropriate the resources of this continent. And so the thing that they did was that once again, John Newton did not know he was an eagle either. He didn't understand that at this time in his life. He didn't know that. This is earlier on in his life, before 1779. And so what he wanted to do was he wanted ease and comfort. In fact, what he was trying to do was to emulate, was to imitate my neighbors. I am surrounded, I have thousands of them. They're all around where I live. And all they want in life is ease and comfort. Ease and comfort. That's their only goal. Happiness, ease, comfort, ease and comfort. In other words, where I live is a cow pasture. That's where I live. My neighbors, that's all they want. They're so happy, and they've got everything they need. They have grass, they have fresh air and water and shade and just endless fields. That's all they have. Ease and comfort, that's all they want. Of course, I know that is not a very good lifestyle to emulate, because as so many of you have probably experienced meals at Burger King. So you know the result of that lifestyle. Anyway, this John Newton had not put it that far in his thinking. He didn't realize, you see, all he wanted was ease and comfort. He didn't know about, like I said, our eagleness. And so he got involved in the business that was the most likely to get him ease and comfort, the fastest. At that time, it was the slave trade. And so he got a boat, and he set sail. He went down to Africa, and he loaded that up. However they did it, I don't know. Didn't really cover that. And then he began his business back and forth. And every time he did that, every time he made a trip, he realized that he was getting unhappier and unhappier, more miserable, just like driving something into his heart, because he deep inside he knew it wasn't right. He was getting rich, but it wasn't helping him at all. And one time he was coming this way, and the ship was hit by a terrible storm, just seas, waves like mountains. And just before, I guess, he realized that his ship was going to be turned into so many million toothpicks, he had an experience. He realized that, life was more than ease and comfort. This thing began to be activated in him, as it is in all of us, that inclines us towards the transcendent. We all have this yearning to rise above and to go beyond. We all have that, even though we're kind of immersed in an environment that pulls us the other way. But John Newton, at this flash, he saw that he needed to do something, and so he turned towards God. He turned towards God, and he made promises. He promised that he would change his life, that he would transform, and he would mend his ways. And so at that time, it just seemed like an answer. That storm, which was moving anyway, moved on past, and the seas just kind of calmed down, just smooth. And John Newton, he thought, well, I was getting carried away. He thought, it's not going to hurt to make one more trip, he thought. But then he thought, no, this is the chance. He turned around, he went back, and he must have realized the eagerness of his passengers too, and he took them back. Then he went back to his home in England, and he seems like at that time he began to, this change in him caused a whole transformation in which he began to be receptive to many beautiful things, and he became a composer, beautiful songs. And I'll play one of these, and I'll dedicate it to transformation. I think this is a very good theme. Transformation. This is a season right now. Everything is transforming from life into the season of stillness and rest and dormancy. And so, really, as human beings, we don't need to make that transition into dormant. We have the capacity to be eternally efflorescent and to be growing and developing, transforming towards new horizons and new places for growth in our lives. So I'd like to dedicate this song for transformation to all of us here. And I think you'll probably recognize this song. To me, this is really the most important type of a role we need to get into, is a role where we can position ourselves to reach higher heights. So here it is. Maybe some of you have heard this song, but it's dedicated to all of you. Here we go. For transformation. So let's go on here. Now, kind of emphasizing that theme, I'd like to mention on the flute here, these flutes that I have. Many of them that are used in North America use 6 holes, but virtually all of the songs that I've really, or most of them I should say, not categorically all of them, but most of them, when you play them, the songs use 7 notes. It's kind of an interesting progression, especially the traditional flute songs from different tribes. Maybe I'll play some of those too. But now, I was curious, why 7? Why 7? And 7 is very important for many reasons, I think, throughout the world, especially here in North America. And I don't know the meanings of it for different places, but in South Dakota, the Indian people, the Lakota, the Sioux people, they trace their ancestry back to 7 clans. These they call Ocheti Shakoe, 7 fireplaces, and there's also like 7, different types of ceremonies that constitute spiritual core of their way of life. And then even if you kind of forget some of these things at night, you can see the 7 stars up in the dipper. That'll remind you. And then after rain, you see the 7 colors in the rainbow. So there's a lot of things that relate to 7. Also, there's 7 directions out in the world. And so these 6 here, these readily apparent ones, these are the ones that are so readily apparent out in the world, such as the heavens and the earth. And then, of course, the 4 cardinal directions, the east, the south, the west, and the north. And this is, you see these 500 years that have elapsed, actually 499 years that have elapsed now, as of October, I guess. It's been 499 years since Columbus came here. In this time frame, the people have been, the people, for all different backgrounds, have been struggling over possession or rights to the usage of all of these 6 directions out here in this creation, this beautiful creation. And let me just tell a little brief story to emphasize this point. This is what they call a Ohunkakan story. It's a fairy tale. And at the beginning of time, there was the creation. One of the names of God in the Sioux language, they say Wakantanka, Great Spirit, or Dakushkanshkan, which means that which moves everything in the creation. They say Tunkashila, Grandfather. They also say Wa'ichache, which means the Creator. That's the word meaning Wa'ichache, means the Creator. And the Creator made everything in this world. And when He made it, it was so beautiful. All the 6 directions. The 6 directions were so beautiful. And He gazed out and He was well pleased. But then He realized there was something missing. So then He made the most precious entity in creation. He made the human spirit. And before He gave that human spirit to us, He meditated, and He realized that if He gave it to us outright, chances are we wouldn't appreciate its worth, how precious and sacred and holy it is to Him. This was His thought. So then as He had that thought, these different animals, they came and they wanted to help Him, each in their turn. The buffalo said he would take it out in the prairies and hide it. But the Great Spirit said, no, all of these prairies someday will be turned over so the roots are sticking up. The bear said he'd take it beyond those prairies and he'd put it out in the mountains, on the highest mountain. But the Great Spirit said, no, even those mountains, there's not going to be any hidden places there. Even in the deepest caves, the caves they'll make will connect, so there won't be anything hidden. And, the fish said he'd take it way down to the bottom where no light shines. The Great Spirit, Creator, said they'd shine a light there. Eagle said, the moon. There'll be footprints on the moon. He said, there's no place. All the animals, they tried, but there is no place. And so finally, they were disappointed, and they were turned back. Each of them. There was no place. And so their little animal came up at the end, and he's a mole, and the little mole, they call him a wahiha. That's the word they use in South Dakota, wahiha. And the phrase, the expression, wahiha ata ishtahuha, trokata etron kipshne, ogana sheche ilazata akia ahitwa chanke hakikta nanke seche. This little mole, he is blind, he's stone blind. He can't, maybe, since he can't look forward, maybe his eyes are turned and are looking back the other way. That's what I said. And so this little mole, he said, well, why don't you put it someplace where they'll never look for it? They'll be so distracted, they'll be looking all around here. I can't see it, but I heard it's beautiful. Put it someplace where they'll never find it, because they'll never look for it. And they couldn't figure it out, but you all guessed, I'm sure. Mole suggested to put it right in here, which is, which is where the Great Spirit established that most precious entity in creation. And that's why on the flute, they use the 7 notes, because, the 7th direction is the only one that's important. So my point that I'm making in kind of in a roundabout way to all of you is that in 500 years, all of these 6 directions have been conquered fully, completely. They've been almost completely exhausted. And people are, now the big movement is, all right, Mr. Indian, what do we do now? Tell us about how do we treat the earth? Tell us about how to treat it. How do we understand the sacredness of this earth? What can we do? What can we do? And I hear a lot of people saying that, and wherever I go, different Indian people are saying, they're asking us, colleges everywhere, they're coming and say, Mr. and Mrs. Indian, help us, we need to find out. And a couple of us got together and we decided to tell them the truth, We told them the truth, there's nothing sacred out there. All this land out here, that's not sacred. That air that you're breathing out there, even the sun up there and all the stars, none of that. All these plants and those oceans, the waters that flow, none of that is sacred. It's not sacred at all. And then we told them, but there is a place that's sacred. There is a little piece of real estate that is sacred. And this little piece of real estate, you can't buy it. You can't sell it and you can't mortgage it, although people have tried. And it's the smallest and most seeming insignificant. In fact, it's been completely overlooked for 500 years, this piece of real estate that we're talking about, as people have been busy conquering the rest of it. There is a little piece of real estate. And the only piece of real estate that you should worry about cleaning up is this piece of real estate. Forget about the rest. You can pollute that to kingdom come, which is here now. But you can contaminate that all you want. The piece of real estate, you need to haul some trash out, some garbage, some contaminants, the pollutants out of. If you can haul a little bit out of this little piece of soil right here, the soil, the human air, if you can clean out a little bit of the garbage out of here, at that time, and only at that time, you're going to understand a little bit of the sacredness here. And only at that time are you going to understand the sacredness out in this creation. How every atom and molecule in this creation was ordained as a path through which this could be edified and uplifted, this human heart. And so, this is what I'm talking about, you see, seventh direction. In these 500 years, all of these have been conquered already, you see. There's no place left to go. What we need to do is to focus on this one here, this one right here. One of the in the Baha'i faith, one of the writings of Baha'u'llah, it says, O son of spirit, my first counsel is this: possess a pure, kindly, and radiant heart, that thine may be a sovereignty, ancient, imperishable, and everlasting. You see. I said, that's mine, you see. But the rest of it was Baha'u'llah. So, what I would like to do is to dedicate a song to all of you here, you see, because all of you here are the trustees of that most precious piece of real estate. That's what I say, seventh direction. So I'd like to take all these notes. This is just going to be symbolic, you see, it's symbolic. But I'd like to take them together and have